you go.
Seth, can you hear us now? Folks, if you're out there listening to us, we got a little bit of a technical issue that we're trying to solve. Got Seth Greenberg, our ESPN basketball analyst, hoping to get that audio issue straightened out, and I'll get it teed off with Pistons head coach Dwane Casey, who joins us right now as we try and chop up some buckets, chop up some hoops. Coach, thanks a lot for joining us. And, man, this has been a strange time, not only in the world of basketball and across the basketball NBA landscape, but the entire world. First things first, how have you been keeping yourself busy during this time?
Well, again, I probably had more Zoom conference meetings and telephone conference meetings and text messages back and forth to players than I've ever had during the season. So it was kind of a good thing. It kind of helped us get refocused and reorganized, spend more time with my family. But again, it's a time of reflection, Mark, as you know. It really puts everything, life in perspective, sports in perspective, and family in perspective.
How much contact? You mentioned the contact. What's an average day like for you, Coach, in terms of reaching out to your players, reaching out to your staff? They say that in a time like this, it's great to have a quote unquote plan for your day. What's your plan for the day been like?
Well, normally get up and, try to keep a schedule to get up in the morning. We have a planned telephone coaches meeting 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we have Tuesday and Tuesdays is the front office with Arn and Ed Stefanski. And then on Thursdays, we usually have a different, whether scouting, draft, free agent meetings during the day, throughout the day. So my daily schedule is full throughout the week as far as whether it's our players. I try not to over communicate with our guys every day because we have our strength coach, our weight and conditioning coach talking to guys each day. So again, I'm sure they're getting tired of hearing from us as much as as anything else. But try to make sure we stay connected as much as possible each day of the week.
Right. As we wait to bring Seth Greenberg in, Coach.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Oh,
We can hear you.
All right,
we can hear you.
A lack of technology for me. Who knows? But I was just listening to that. Obviously, routine is so important. Before we can really kind of dig deep into it, we've been doing these HallPass web hoop conversations and shows. This is our second one. I appreciate everyone being here. I think the one thing we got to do before we even get started really is just thank all the selfless people that are out there working their tails off every single day, the doctors, the nurses, the hospital workers, the people that are moving our food chain, the people that are working in stores that are enabling us to have some semblance of a life, the sacrifices that so many people are making. To me, it's incredible. It's inspiring. You always talk about heroes. To me, whether it's the person delivering the meal or I have 3 neighbors that are doctors, seeing them go off each and every day to work is, it's emotional in a lot of ways. And we're very, very thankful for that.
Yeah. Great point, Seth.
Our
team, to your point, Seth, our team doctor, Dr. Shihab, was at Henry Ford Medical Center. He's probably been the most important person, and you just asked me, Mark, communicating with each and every day. We see all the trends. Detroit's a hot spot right now, or has been. I think we've hit a plateau a little bit, but he was in our ear each and every day, talking to the players, communicating what's good, what's going on, what's happening, explaining questions that everybody had, because we were in quarantine for 14 days because Christian Wood tested positive. So, but he was probably the most important, selfless person within our group these last 2 months.
It's just scary. It's scary stuff. And those people, to me, I get so tired of the static that's around this, and everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants to have that soundbite. Everyone wants it. But you know what? If we could just do what these people are doing, and tone is so important. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's listening and hearing and appreciating each other. And, I'm so tired of these commercials we see each and every week that we're all in it together. The big thing is we need to be all in it together, and those medical officials, to me, and everyone else that's involved, they have set the standard. So I used to always say the standard's the standard. they've set the standard of how we all need to carry ourselves in a lot of ways. So I just want to make sure that's important to me, and I know it's important to you guys. And we're trying to get Ham on here, but the reason I wanted to get all you guys together is I have so much respect for Coach Hamilton. I just think he's an incredible human being. He's a great mentor. He's a great person. He cares so much, and he looks so damn young for a guy that's so damn
71. I tell you what, you would never know it.
Yeah, we got to get to what he got.
The same stuff right there, but I know he's had an impact on both of you. Dwane, he recruited you to Kentucky, right?
He sure did, and I'm gonna say this, Seth. You just said it. Not only is he a good coach, he's a great human being. Every important decision I make, whether it was getting married, whether it's any coaching staff over the last 12, 13 years I've had, he's had an input on it. I run stuff off of him. I bounce things off of him. Every big decision I make through my personal, professional career, he's one of the few people that I consult and talk to, and he's been a godsend to me and almost like a second dad.
You know,
my brother. We're about the same age, so he's like a brother, so to speak.
You know, I've been down here in Miami, guys, on and off for close to 30 years now. And when Coach Ham was at the University of Miami building that program, to see the way that he labored to get – I remember going in his office a lot of times, and he had the little dollhouse there with his images and his rendition of what – the on-campus arena would look like, because for so long, people forget, they played down on on Northeast 8th Street and Biscayne Boulevard, on the other side of Biscayne Boulevard, not where the fancy arena is now, but on the other side of Biscayne Boulevard at the old Miami Arena. His dream, his vision was always to see that arena built, and I'd go visit him down there at the University of Miami. He'd have the little dollhouse moved around, waiting on the permits.
All right, we talked about you.
And just, you know, to finish on the impact that Coach Hamilton has had on me personally, you know, when my wife and I were first getting married, I can remember visiting him one of those times, and he took out a Bible from his office desk and gave it to me and wrote some wonderful scripture in there. And I found it at the time, and still do, very inspiring. And once in a while, I'll look for that Bible and read from it. When I look at the way that he's been graced and blessed in his career, just so inspiring on so many fronts. And when you see the amount of players that have been through his program at Miami and Florida State, it's really amazing. I consider it one of my life accomplishments to have been associated with.
No question. Well, he started me out in coaching too. I was a grad assistant with him and Dick Parsons and Coach Hall. I just talked to Coach Hall last week, who I think he's like 92 now and still into it, still vibrant, still alert. But Coach Hamilton broke me into coaching, and his assignment for me was to take care of Sam Bowie, Melvin Turpin, rest his soul, Dirk Meningfield,
right,
Derek Horde, that whole group. My job was to teach them the 6-8-10 offense, which was the offense that Kentucky had for so many years. But Coach Ham put me in charge of those guys, and anytime he brought recruits in on the weekends at Kentucky, it was my job. I remember bringing in Clark Kellogg and you know, entertaining him for the weekend and selling him on Kentucky, and whatever Coach Ham wanted me to do as a grad assistant after I got through playing at Kentucky, I went and did it. You know, and he was a great mentor, and I owe him so much of getting me started in coaching.
Yeah. You know, Seth, one of the things, Seth, that I always hear as a common denominator amongst Coach Ham's players from Miami all the way to Florida State through the years is they never want to disappoint him. He motivates his players in such a way that they don't want to disappoint him. And that, to me, is almost the ultimate compliment in terms of coaching style and philosophy. You know, and that goes a long way, I think. And obviously, it's been a tremendous success.
Mark,
looks like we're having an issue with Seth's mic.
Right.
Folks, we're still trying to get this squared away if you're out there listening to us. But while we get Seth up and running again, so it's really amazing when you look at, you know, we're talking still on Coach Hamilton, ACC Coach of the Year again this year, 26-5. Got a great commitment from a player down here in my area in Miami, Scotty Barnes from Montverde Academy, who's committed to Florida State for next year. Have a couple of players that committed.
Are you on now, Coach?
And it sounds like we have been able to bring in Coach Hamilton. Coach, you there with us?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We're bragging on you. I tell you what, your head's probably exploding now. We've been bragging on you for the last 15 minutes.
And while we wait to get Seth Greenberg in here.
But one thing I would say about Coach Ham's teams, one thing that you know, and I watch so many, videos and game footage of teams, his team, other teams, players we're looking at. One thing you can know, his team defend their butts off, and how he does it. I'm gonna get a recipe for it. He can play 10 to 12 guys, and all of them, they're all happy. They understand their roles. He gets players to play their role. They get 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever it is. Those guys go out there and perform. And so that's a mark of an excellent coaching, a leadership of Coach Ham as far as instilling that guys buying into their role.
Coach, what have you been up to in the recent 8 weeks in this stay-at-home order world that we're all in right now?
I've tried to turn it up a notch. I realize that this is a very difficult time for all of us. And what I'm trying to do is prepare myself for the unexpected, because I realize that these are times that we're dealing with.
No question. I think, Coach, you hit it on the head. We can't coach and can't prepare the way we've been doing. So what you're doing now is so important. I think we're all trying to coach for the unexpected, stay ahead of the curve. Whether it's college basketball or NBA, we have no clue what it's going to look like once we come back, whether it's going to be no fans, which I think is going to have an impact on both your team and on the college level and the NBA level. No fans, some fans, I don't know. But I think whatever comes before us, you have to prepare for it, and we all have to be ready for what's about to hit us.
Should I see if this is working? Can you hear me?
You're on, buddy.
Yes.
I'm hearing 2 or 3 conversations.
Hey, by the way,
you guys?
A love fest, Ham. It's been an absolute love fest to start this thing off, as it should be, no doubt about it. Hey, I got a question for you guys. We all following the Last Dance stuff. I'm going to go around like Dwane. What was your one takeaway from last night?
Well, we played them in '96 when I was in Seattle in the finals. The one thing that you know about the Chicago Bulls, and the one thing that I took away from these last 4 episodes, is how Phil Jackson was able.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
I'm hearing 2 or 3 conversations.
Okay.
We've had
Can you hear me?
major today.
We'll get it worked out. You were saying, Coach?
Okay.
Casey?
Well, one thing that you can tell that's amazing is how he got that group to buy into the triangle. Here's a superstar, Michael Jordan, who goes from getting 40, 50 points a night to coming in, okay, we're going to take the ball out of your hand. And by the way, you got to be happy. You still got to be the leader. But we're going to run this sophisticated read and react offense that you go from Doug Collins, who called most plays, which were geared to Michael Jordan, but we're going to get the ball out of your hands. Okay, you're the best player that's ever played the game, but now go fit in. I just don't know. It takes an extraordinary coaching job to be able to do that, to get Michael to buy in to that system. And not only buy in, he embraced it and had other players to buy into it. I thought that was the biggest takeaway I took from the difference between Doug and also Phil.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jonesy?
It's funny. I covered all 6 of those championship drives and runs that the Bulls made. And the moments that stick out to me, especially from episodes 1 and 2, was the 6 3-pointer game that Michael had against the Portland Trailblazers in the 1992 series. His success and his gravity was so profound and so tangible. You could feel it. Like, I saw him wear out some tremendous defenders, Jerome Kersey. They put Porter on him. They had Drexler on him. And Michael was just cooking. He could not be stopped. And then, from the media standpoint, guys, I think about how accessible he was during that time. Now, picture this. Before every game, he'd be in his locker room after doing his pregame interviews with NBC, who had the rights at the time. I'd walk into the old Bulls Stadium locker room where the Bulls were, and he would have one of the first stalls there. And Mike would be just sitting there putting his uniform on. And when we had our accessibility hours for those 45 minutes, he'd say, "Hey, Marky, what's up? What's going on?" And he'd love to listen to all the gossip going on. You could talk to him about the series. You could talk to him about his family, talk to his kids. And Dwane, Seth, nowadays, nowadays in the NBA, some of your elite players, during that media accessibility time, they're in the trainer's room for the first 40 out of the 45 minutes, and they come with about 3 minutes to go. It's a media scrum, and then the guy comes in, the media director comes and says, "Guys, it's time to leave." Michael was so accessible and handled it with so much aplomb that it really is unbelievable looking back on it now.
No question. No, go ahead.
Yeah, Dennis Rodman comes in, Pippen comes back. Dennis Rodman comes in. I need 48 hours in Vegas. They don't go to press. They don't go to ownership. They go to Mike and say, "Hey, Michael, all right, here's the deal. Dennis needs 48 hours." Now, first of all, could there's no way that could happen today. But Dwane, you're sitting there. You were the NBA Coach of the Year. You won a gazillion games. I put yourself in that situation. How crazy would that be in today's world?
Well, it would be crazy, but I'm gonna say this: as an NBA head coach, one thing you got to be able to do is be flexible. And I promise you, if Phil Jackson had went in there with a hammer and a whip and chain or whatever in a chair, he would not have gotten it done. He went in there with a piece of paper and was slicing and dicing, getting them to do what he wanted them to do by making it their idea, by making it Michael's idea, by selling Scotty on it. And in today's world, with that type of talent, those type of superstars, first of all, Seth, in today's NBA, there's not enough money. There's not an owner in this league that probably can afford that type of talent. You'd be so far over the luxury tax. But that type of approach that he had is the only way. Whether it's letting Dennis go, I don't know if you'd say go to Vegas, but take a few days off, And the other thing, too, at that time, there's far more days between games than there are today. So you had 2 or 3 days between games, where today that's very, very rare. But I think Phil handled that team the way you had to have handled it. You've got to make it, one, whether philosophical or not, Michael's got to be your partner. Scottie Pippen's got to be your partner. More so than, like you said, the relationship with the front office. Your relationship with those two guys by far is the most important. And he was very smart in making it, Michael's idea, or getting Michael to buy in to give Rodman those days off. Because I promise you, if Michael wasn't for it, it wasn't going to happen.
Coach, what was your takeaway? Did you watch The Last Dance last night? Do you have any takeaways from last night? I know you got some philosophy on this stuff.
No, I agree with Coach Casey. There's no doubt that Phil had an instinct of how to relate to situations. He was extremely confident in who he was. He was confident in his own skin. He didn't allow little things to bother him. He realized that different personalities has a way of making up a unit. And I think that he really had a good feel for how to communicate with those guys, and it made a huge difference in the success of the team. And that's the skill that he was beyond his years. And chemistry, teamwork, and developing a culture is so important to success.
Hey, Jonesy.
Yeah.
Walking off. All right, you were probably covering those games, right?
Yeah. Here's a take that I've heard diverges a little bit from the Rodman to Vegas vacation that they talked about last night, is that the Bulls actually at the time sent one of their strength and conditioning coaches out with him. And it was like the old Wilt Chamberlain free throw shooting coach. The Wilt free throw shooting didn't get better, but the free throw shooting coach was shooting 86% at the end of it all. You couldn't find the strength and conditioning guy that they sent out with Rodman to Vegas.
Yeah.
Every time they tried to reach him, they was in the middle of a club, or they were busy doing something. And so the whole picture of that, plus Carmen Electra last night in the documentary saying that Michael Jordan's knocking on the door and she went to the closet. That whole picture kind of really.
I have a question though, guys. How was Michael Jordan in Vegas knocking on the door to get to practice? That threw me for a loop right there. Yeah. But again, the whole thing. But again, like Coach Ham just said, Mark, you just said, Phil was a master. He knew what he had to allow Rodman to do. And whether Rodman was yelling, hey, I need rest, I'm sure there was some turmoil between the threesome with Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman and Pippen coming back. So it was an opportunity for Rodman to get away, reconnect, get himself together a little bit more as those three got back together. And as you saw, once he came back, got back to work, there was no issues.
And you know what? I can remember, Seth, I can remember covering that run, that end of the run too. And there were several times during the regular season when I'd wait for Dennis to do an interview with ESPN, and he wouldn't be available until a good hour and a half after, because after a lot of games, he'd play like 36, 38 minutes and then be in the weight room doing 30 minutes of lifting and another 20 on the bike. So I think some of those things that happened extraneously were overlooked because he was such a physically dominant player in his own unique way.
I thought the cool thing about that team, and we always talk about guys playing to their strengths. Like Rodman's the greatest example. Like when that stat came up, he had so many games where he had 20 points and no rebounds. Like what a great stat for a young player today, Coach Ham, to say, all right, you can tell you're going to be the best defender and the best rebounder in all of college basketball, and that's going to make you millions of dollars. That would be a hard sell. But that team bought into their strengths. I mean, what do you think, Ham?
But Phil was somewhat of a maverick himself. You know, he didn't dance to the normal beat of everybody else's drum. So he had a different outlook and approach, and that was a unique situation that not very many guys could have even had the right feel. And it was this very unique as to how the team bought into his way of communicating with them. And I mean, I can imagine myself standing out with my team standing up in the air doing some yoga. I mean, I'm not real sure that would work with me, Casey. I don't know about you.
No. Again, he was different. He was totally different. I mean, and again, he had this persona about him that I don't think anybody else could have pulled off in the entire league. To give you guys an example, you know, Seth, you asked the question, what would you allow guys to do? I remember having Kevin. I wish I knew now what I knew. Could have coached Kevin Garnett back then, because I came in with a whip and chain thinking, okay, I'm gonna get this guy to buy in. No, you're not. You can fool yourself all you want to. You're not gonna get you. You better get him as your partner. And I wish, and Coach Ham said it, I wish I had the confidence I have now back then. I'd probably still be in Minnesota. But again, you got to get those guys on your side to buy in. And Phil did a great job. And again, I thought Doug Collins did a great job too. I think, Phil kind of came in and gave it a little bit more structure, got everybody else involved, and the rest is history. It's
funny you said that, because I had lunch one day. I'm 24 years old, watching a Knicks training camp, and UB Brown invites me to lunch because it's a 5-star. So I'm a nervous wreck. And so I sit down with him in his suite, and he's talking about the practice and this, and asking me what I thought. And I don't know, something. I said something about Bernard King. And he said, you know what the most important thing is? If you can't coach your best player, you can't coach your team.
Right. That's true.
And he said, coach and communicator, touch, connect with. And that stuck with me almost all the time. And watching yesterday, like the ability that Jackson developed with Michael Jordan to bring him into that circle, because Michael Jordan, his whole deal with that summer, like that's the thing that stuck out to me in the whole thing. That summer before they won the championship, he decided that he had to get stronger. They had to get stronger to deal with the Pistons. And once he made that commitment, leadership's getting other people to follow you. Like, what was your guys' take on? Could that happen today? I mean, I think it could happen in college. One guy having that much of an impact on the rest of the group. I mean, what do you think of that, Case?
Well, you just said it. When your top player is your hardest worker, what else can anybody say? I guarantee you, there's nobody on that team that could question how long practice was. If you saw the running drill that they were doing when Rodman came back, if Michael Jordan didn't want to do that drill, they wouldn't have done that drill. But because he bought into it, everybody was running the laps around the practice court, which is very unheard of during the regular NBA season. But because he was that guy. And again, and that's what I've learned over the years and learned from Ham. You've got to be able to coach, got to be able to find the button to push of your star players. It may be allowing him, okay, you need a day off, go over there and ride the bike and watch practice. It may be that to get him to buy in the next 6 days. And, it's easy to sit back and say, well, I would have done this, I would have done that. But until you're there in the heat of battle with those players, you've got to find out quickly and through building that relationship, what gets that guy to tick. And that's what and I'm going to say this about Ham. Ham does that with his players. And I said it earlier, for him to be able to get 12, 13 guys to buy in by not playing, 40 minutes a game, 38 minutes a game. You're going to come to Florida State, but you're going to get an NBA opportunity, but you're only going to play 10, 12 minutes a game. And you're going to play this system. You're going to pick up full court. You're going to play defense. But that's smart. That's good coaching. And that's something Coach Ham has done over the years. But by the way, they're ready for the NBA once they get there.
I think that's a great point, Dwane. The connection between a star player or your alpha dog player and his head coach, like Michael and Phil, I don't think you can overstate the importance of that. I can remember your guys' colleague, Avery Johnson, telling me one time when he was starting out coaching the Dallas Mavericks that he would go to dinner with Dirk Nowitzki like for a week straight. And I said, Coach, what is it? You guys talking basketball? He goes, well, you know what? He goes, at the end of the day, my player, especially my number one guy, has to know that I know him as a person and I care about what's going on with him. And I think that goes a long way. And I think even though Phil is a little, Phil Jackson was a little idiosyncratic at the time with the yoga and some of the other stuff, the Native American folklore and legendary things. I think Michael saw that and respected in that, and they bonded over that. And nothing speaks more, guys, to the respect that Michael and Phil had as a unit than Dennis Rodman coming in from San Antonio, because you guys remember that didn't end very well, with Madonna being around, and, it just wasn't a great ending for Dennis in San Antonio. And it was great foresight by Bulls management at the time to be able to say, with Michael and with Scotty, he'll respect the talent in the front office and the structure and the culture we have here. And he bought in for the most part, and they went on to win some titles.
That was probably the only team that probably could absorb Dennis Rodman's personality in the NBA at that time. Maybe if he went to LA with Magic and that group, but with Michael's power and his leadership and Phil's leadership, there's probably one or two teams in the whole league that could absorb that type of personality.
Let me ask you guys this real quick. Coach Casey and Coach Ham especially, and then I want to hear Jonesy's thought. NBA says potentially they can open up practice facilities, which would allow guys at least to come in and have a safe place to train. Colleges, Coach Ham, obviously universities are closed right now. If the NBA does open them up under certain constraints, obviously with some type of parameters, do you think that'll have an impact, Ham, on colleges allowing your players to come back to campus? Because let's face it, your guys potentially back on campus might be putting them in a safer place than they are when they're home. So first, Case, what do you think of the potential of guys coming back to practice facilities and how you guys would handle it? And then I'd be interested, Jonesy and Coach Hamilton, just seeing what kind of impact that could have and if it could carry over to college.
Well, for us, I think one probably disadvantage it has is I know right now Michigan, we're a hot spot for the COVID virus. And so, our whole state is closed down to May 15th, I think it is, the governor said. So we're at a disadvantage from that standpoint where we couldn't go back if we wanted to. But if we did, I think having one coach, one player per basket, we talked about having each player having their own ball. That way you put the ball in the rack, you spray it down every day after practice, but and kind of putting in different compartments with each player, not using the locker room. If we do provide food, Seth, having it out where players can take it and go, and not have a place where players are hanging out together and that type of thing. But again, it's new horizon. There's no norm anymore as far as practice, how you approach practice, but it's going to be more one-on-one, 6 feet apart. We talked about 2 in the weight room and 2 on the court with a coach, just making sure we keep that distance and safety measure in the NBA. But right now with us in Michigan, we can't do anything till the governor opened up the state. I think it's May 15th.
Will have an impact on college?
We've basically been thinking about the same thing that Case is talking about, and it's a moving target because we're more concerned about the overall university community as well as the athletes. So we have more to concern ourselves with other than just the athletes on campus. I'm not real sure that you can let the athletes back on campus and not let the other regular students back on campus. So that's some kind of a moving target as well. But if we were fortunate enough, to allow our kids to get back into the training facilities, we would definitely have to take a lot of measures, like what Case is saying, because this is new for all of us. But a little farther, it's important for us as college coaches to keep coaching our guys' minds. It's so much different than the NBA. You have adults who have families and contracts and upward mobility and salary caps and all those things involved. In college, we have teenagers, 17, 18-year-old youngsters that are moving into young adulthood. So you have to have a relationship with them, their parents, to try to help teach and develop them. It's not always easy when you have so many kids from so many different backgrounds. And what we've tried to do is develop a culture where we all buy in and we all communicate and talk and come up with an approach. We spend more time coaching their minds and their spirits than we do their bodies, because physically you're able to execute physically when you're in sync mentally and emotionally. And we work so hard at that, and we allow our players to have a lot of input as to how we're going to approach the game. And secondly, it's interesting how different the interaction is with NBA guys than it is with college guys.
Joe, do you see this breaking news right here? NBA.
Yeah, I see right there
that
beginning May the 8th, the NBA is going to institute some new rules where they're allowing 4 players maximum at once, no head or assistant coaches or group activity allowed at the practice facilities. And, this is such a developing story and wave as it goes day by day with, Texas, the state of Georgia, Florida releasing its stay-at-home rules, and practice facilities about to open up. I know that I was out today with a workout with my daughter who works with an NBA trainer, and there are a couple of NBA guys that work with him at the time, and it feels like a lot of the players are out working out individually already with their trainers of choice and getting their work in. So I'm almost of the opinion that a lot of guys, if they've been able to, if they have the means, have gotten to their gyms and getting the requisite workout. I know that's might not be the majority, but I think it's a significant number of people I know that some of them now, as of today, that I've spoken to, have been summoned back to their respective cities in anticipation of these practice facilities opening up again. And, any way I think you look at it in the big picture, I think it's a positive sign that, we're now starting to look at players gravitating back to their practice facilities and being able to work out on May 8th in maximum groups of 4. And, it's still my hope, and maybe a long shot, but it's still my hope that there's some kind of season to be played, even if we just go straight to the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you that, Coach Casey. How long do you think you would need with your team?
Well, I do know that we've been off what 2 months, I think it is now, almost. I think a good 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think of practice. And again, some teams are in different positions, and Mark just said it. A team like Boston, a team like LA, a team like the Clippers, a team like Milwaukee, they're playing for something different. Whereas like ourselves, I listened to Steve Kerr the other day, we're almost getting ready for the next season, whether getting our offensive philosophy together, looking at our roster, developing our young guys. So it's a different approach for us. But again, I would say a good 3 weeks, 4 weeks as far as getting, because if you don't, you're looking to have some significant injuries, guys coming back going against NBA competition, because believe me, it's a big difference going against that trainer in that gym versus that big 6'8" guy. So your body has to get used to that, and it takes some time, because if you think about it, also this is the longest period of time a lot of NBA players haven't had access to a gym, access to NBA competition. At least in the summertime, you can go get a game against NBA competition somewhere, right. And so, or get into a gym. And a lot of players, the majority of our league right now, hasn't had that opportunity to go against those type players in a gym setting.
Coach Ham, what would you think if the NBA came back, all right, and they say they had 3 or 4 games, and then they did basically what the NCAA does. They create everyone gets in the tournament, seed the tournament, certain guys get buys, and when you get to the Final Four, it's the best 3 out of 5 or the best 2 out of 3. You think
I think it would be outstanding. I think it would be outstanding. I don't like the fact, well, here again, I hate voicing opinions because we all have them. But I would like to see, everybody involved at the end of the year, like you say, maybe give the top teams a bye. Because I think that sometimes those guys at the bottom have such a hard time ever catching back up. And sometimes at the end of the year, the bottom teams could be getting hot and playing better and coming off of injuries. And I think it would be so exciting for some of those teams to start knocking off some of the teams maybe at the top. It would just create even a better following and more excitement for the NBA.
What do you think, Coach Casey? You think that's something that the players would be excited about?
Again, it's hard to say. Again, in my opinion, I would love it as a coach, but I would say in our league, you got to have buy-in from the top echelon of guys, to seeing how they feel about it. If I was the Lakers or the Clippers or Milwaukee right now, I don't know if I would go for that. But from my standpoint, whether you're trying to develop a team and trying to get them up to that level, I would love it, because again, it gives us an opportunity to get a feel, to grow in that setting. So I think you're going to have two gulfs of opinions of that. But I from a coaching standpoint, I agree with Coach Hamilton in the fact that I think it's good for us as a young team, a team that's rebuilding, to have that opportunity.
Jones, what do you think?
Seth, I think that NBA leadership under Adam Silver in particular has always been very enterprising and creative. And I think this is a great opportunity to, go along the lines that Coach Ham mentioned, that, maybe you give first round buys. I'd love to see a play-in type format where you give first round buys to the top maybe 4 teams, the Lakers, the Bucks, Clippers, and whoever else in the respective conferences, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have a tournament type format after that, because That's something that the league has talked about for a couple of years at some of their board of governors meetings and competition committee meetings, and kind of tinkered with that idea of what it would look like. Why not try it now when kind of all bets are off and we're in this brand new world? I don't see any kind of downside to that. And I think what would be important if we do that, or whether we just go straight to the playoffs, or whether we play the regular season out, is that I think about the 1999 lockout year. And guys, you guys probably remember it too, where once we got started, it was a condensed season. It was a little bit different because guys didn't have access. Guys had access to NBA facilities, but it was a condensed season, 50 games, and it was a sprint to the finish line. It was some of the best basketball that you ever saw. And that's where I think the teams that will, if we get back to playing again, end up being successful are the teams with a lot of depth, and B, teams that have a culture of great conditioning, because they're going to have to be ready to go when we get back.
Yeah, I just think it'd be interesting to put it at once. It would also be a way to get through the end of the season in a quicker fashion if you did some type of tournament, because and maybe even safer, because if it was at one site, if you lost, that team would obviously then move on, and it would eliminate the number of people that are in the equation, especially if you had it. You know, a lot of people say in Las Vegas you could do a game in Cox, a game in at UNLV, and then you play two games simultaneously. You know, as the tournament goes through, you can sit through it a little bit. And I think some of the players who played in the NCAA tournament, let me ask you, Ham, they would probably, you talk about raising your temperature. That would raise some dudes' temperature. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it'd be interesting. I just like the idea of the bottom guys having a chance to move up, like you have in college. I just think that it's a new season, and you don't have the buys, maybe, but in the NBA, I don't know, Case, whether or not it would be good for a team to have a week or so rest while everybody else is playing. I don't know whether that's a reward or whether that's a negative. You know, as I sit here listening and having this conversation with you guys, which I'm thoroughly enjoying, I'm just realizing the difference in the approach in college as it is in the NBA. It's an altogether different game, and sometimes I think that's lost in the interpretation of how we present ourselves.
Well, Ham, I'm going to give you something right up your alley, and I'm interested in what Coach Case and Jonesy think. All right, supposedly in the coming week, they're going to have some type of conversation on one-time transfer exception, right, where you get a chance to transfer once, not have to sit out, be eligible. In fact, the date they said is the drop dead date would be September, which means a kid could decide last day August that, well, you know, I'm going to decide to transfer, boom, and be at the next place. Where do you think? I know you've been in some conversations because I gave my man Izzo your phone number. Like, where are you on this one-time transfer exemption? And what is that? Good, bad, indifferent? How would you even handle the thing?
Well, it's extremely challenging in the fact that it's hard to maintain continuity, sell tickets, come up with a strategy for your team when you don't know who's going to be on your team. And in life, you sign contracts with just about everything that we do. You sign contracts when you get married. You sign contracts to buy a car. You sign contracts all over the place. And it's interesting that now, if my son is 16 years old and he gets home late from driving the car, and I put him on discipline, the next morning I can go in his room and all his clothes be gone. He moved next door with the neighbors who have decided to let them drive the car. And I'm saying that's what it's like. And I don't know if we've had enough conversation about this process. I don't know any coaches who like it, especially the mid-majors. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, I could probably benefit from this. I mean, the ACC, we play a good style of ball. Kids might want to come for overall good of basketball and what's best teaching youngsters, you know, how to accept responsibilities and work them ways through challenges. I'm not real sure that's good for the development of youngsters, and it's not good for the whole basketball community. I think we need more conversation about it.
Jones, your daughter's a player, and what like just in a big picture, what would you think about that?
You know what? I think about my son, who Coach Ham was nice enough to have at his Florida State Elite basketball camp when he was a sophomore. It kind of was a jump start to the whole process of going through it. He ended up signing at Presbyterian College, a small school in South Carolina, Big South Conference. And before he even stepped on campus, the coach that we got to know, the coach that we felt very comfortable with, the coach that we liked, ended up leaving. And that was the start to our whole family's collegiate basketball experience. It might be the exception, but I thought about it at the time, how there are a lot of other kids that go through the same thing where the coach that you get close to leaves, and it really changes the complexion of your recruitment. I know they say that's about the school, but I think there's an undeniable part of the relationships you build with the people there. So I think under that kind of scenario, maybe there's a waiver where the kid gets a chance under a specific scenario like that. But in the whole, I don't think I like the whole idea of just total free agency and kids being able to leave for no reason. I think there have to be some specific exceptions, because otherwise then, you have Raiders just coming into the mid majors and plucking them out, and they're all gone, And
Seth, if you add that along with the opportunity now the kids are going to the G League, you're going to have more chaos than you think you want in college basketball. And for me, from a selfish standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, I'd rather for guys to stay, with their school, get that continuity, get the teaching. Because for me as a coach evaluating players on the NBA level, if I see a kid who can't keep a commitment, he goes from school A to B to C, unless, like Jones is saying, there's some circumstance that's out of everybody's control. That says something that kid can't be committed to that contract. So I think you have to be careful from a coaching standpoint to see that. And like Ham's saying it from a pure point, is teams in the ACC, SEC, Pac-12 or whatever it is, are going to benefit from it, because guys going to Western Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, oh man, I can go play over at Kentucky. Guess what? The next day they're going to be going over and transferring schools, and you're going to have chaos more than anything else.
Yeah, Jonesy, what you said, I think if a coach leaves, they should give a 2-week window once a new coach is hired. And if he doesn't feel comfortable with it, they should be up to transfer. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
What you just said, Dwane, and Coach Ham, you said it, all the guys I talk to now that I used to coach against, there's not one guy that likes the proposal. And the guys I'm talking to are all guys that would benefit from it. You just said it. You'd benefit from it, no doubt about it. Cal, he's totally against it. They benefit as much as anyone. Just a quick crossover, kind of tying in, because Dwane, you mentioned about the NBA Academy. Ham, what's your take on the NBA Academy? And basically, and this is me. Look, I understand the NBA's business. The NBA is going to do what's in their best interest and their shareholders' best interest. But the idea that right now they're literally trying to recruit guys off their college scholarships to see if they have an interest in the academy. And again, we don't know a ton about it, but what's your guys' take on, is the academy, maybe for a select few? My worry about the academy, and this is just my opinion, you're going to have kids who think that they're on their way to the NBA that are basically going to lose their opportunities in life because they're not going to have that college experience, and they're chasing a dream that's unattainable. But let's face it, young people a lot of times are unrealistic, but they're listening to people tell them what they want to hear. So I don't know, Ham and Dwane, and Jones, I'd love all your guys' take on that.
Well, I'm happy and impressed by the fact that the NBA is giving youngsters an opportunity, those elite ones who really don't have any interest in going to college, that select few that will be going, that maybe just don't have any interest in going. I'm concerned about the process and the recruiting and paying the amount of money, but that's a whole nother ballgame. I do think providing an avenue for youngsters to be able to realize their dream, I think that can't do anything but good. But what we're talking, we have 5,200 guys playing in Division I basketball. And you have 500 NBA jobs. And every year you're going to have about 20 to 25 new opportunities become available. So those opportunities are really for the elite of the elite of the elite. And so I'm concerned about not overreacting, because there have been 44 players drafted from high school and has gone on to the NBA. Some of them have been very successful, some of them have been average, and some of them have been flops. But that's the same way it is when you go to college and you go scout them and film them and meet them and have meetings with them. Some of those guys flop as well. So it's all over the place in terms of whether or not it's going to be good for the NBA. If I'm an NBA, I like watching a guy mature and grow in college and see what kind of person he's going to be. And I think that's the best model. Now, I am concerned that we don't seem to have the respect of the fact of valuing the college education.
Yes.
And to me, that's, people seem to devalue that, and we make it all our rules for the elite. But in reality, most of the guys are not going to play in the NBA because you only have 500 jobs and you only got 20 per year, and we got everybody chasing it. So it's a moving target. I've said all along, Seth, I just wish we could all get together, all the basketball entities, and let's sit down and come up with a plan that does not necessarily adversely affect anyone, but that we can work some way together and make this better for everybody. But it seems as though we're kind of all in a selfish position, and I do not want to be put myself in that selfish position, because I'm hammering for what's best for the students. And I do believe that if there are 5,200 kids, most of them need their education. And what really bothers me is that most of the time I hear the talking heads, the media and the print media as well. Those are guys with education and degrees mostly. And I wonder, what would they say about their kids at 17, 18 years old, going and not going to college and getting their degrees? Would they be interested in encouraging their kids not to go to college? And I wonder, there's a lot of sportscasters that play college basketball, but I wonder, had they went and played a few years and didn't have their education, what kind of life they would have right now. So I think sometimes we're not looking at, in my opinion, what's most important for the masses. And right now, I'm fine with taking care of the elite, but let's don't devalue the opportunity of going to college and developing and growing from teenagers to young adults.
100%. Coach Case?
Seth, I'm going to say this from a personal standpoint, because again, the NBA has their goals, but from a coaching standpoint, I totally agree with Coach Ham. There's probably one or two kids that are going to be able to take advantage of this G League select team process or whatever it is. But from a coaching standpoint, I'd much rather for those kids to go to college, all right, get an education, get their butts kicked in college, get taught the right way, how to be a pro, how to be a man or a young lady, and go through that process, because there's no amount of experience that's going to teach you that. And because what happens is one or two guys that are good enough to come into that situation. You're going to have a lot of kids who think they're not ready for it. They think they're ready for it, but they're not ready for it. And they come in, they're going to be a flop. And then they're going to wonder what happened. And then guess what? They're not going to have that college degree to fall back on. So again, it's one or two each year that can do that. But the rest of them better think hard and long about trying to make that jump without being ready. And I agree with Coach Ham. We need to all get together as coaches, owners, Mr. Silver, who I think has done a great job of having foresight and being collaborative, and come up with a plan. That way we don't have those mistakes fall through the cracks that could happen. But, again, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the NBA. But I would suggest that most players, there's probably one or two guys, and I don't know the two kids that are coming out this year that's going to that, but I would say it's going to be a while before they're ready to step in and win an NBA game or be on a playoff team and contribute. It's very few. and you can probably count on your one hand how many have done it through the history of the NBA.
Case, we have 44 guys that have gone straight from high school to the NBA. And what we remember is how well they played after they matured and grew up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what we recognize. Kobe, Garnett, Darryl Dawkins, Moses Malone. I mean, the list goes on of guys but it took them a while. Now, the league has changed. And I just think that those elite guys should have an opportunity. Right. But it seems as though we've gotten caught up with everybody thinking that they're in that category. And I don't want to see us lose sight of what's really been good in the model for guys like Leonard Hamilton, who getting his education changed the whole culture of my entire family. Somehow or another, I'm just not feeling that everyone is placing that value that I think should be placed in that area.
But no, there's no price you can put on maturity and getting a guy from your program, getting a guy from Kentucky, getting a guy who's been coached hard and is ready for this grind. I mean, again, guys can, hoop and holler and think they're ready for it. But like you said, it takes a while to come in here and make a mark or be ready to contribute to winning. And from a coach standpoint, that's what you're looking for.
I think what really this is underscored by is it's being driven. The NBA Academy thing, guys, I think is being driven by business perspective to enhance the brand of the G League. Because if you look at it, it's the LaMelo Balls, it's RJ Hampton, it's guys going to play in Australia. So I think the G League is saying, if they can do it, why not do it here? We'll make it easier for guys to stay in the G League, play on an elite team, learn how to become pros, get the player development coaching that they need. And once again, it's a handful of guys. It's 3 or 4 players, and then they've intimated that they're going to fill out the rest of the roster with other veteran G League players. But I think when you look at the salaries they're talking about playing them, and I don't think it's quite the reported $500,000 they talked about. It's probably somewhere between $250 and $125. And like I said, they see it. The G League does for their brand enhancement. Better to have them guys like Hampton and LaMelo Ball here than overseas in Europe, China, or Australia.
No, George, I agree with that. Here's the things that I would say. Too many guys think it's a rite of passage. Like if you're a pretty good high school player or McDonald's All-American, guys think it's a rite of passage. Well, I'm just going to go to the league. Or if I don't make it in the league, I'm just going to go to Europe. That's not real. All right, that's not real. It is hard. And the whole concept, it's not for everyone. Like the NBA, and I'm not an NBA guy, but is an exclusive club for the very best of the very best. And I did a thing the other day with Malcolm Delaney and one of my former players and Jamon Gordon, 2 guys that made $1 gazillion playing over in Europe. Really, really good players. And Leonard, you know those guys. And they try.
Unfortunately, I do.
They try, but Tony Douglas killed me with those jumpers. And don't even get me started. But they try to explain, like, Europe's not for everyone, man. Like, Europe is not about your potential. Europe, it's about productivity. Like, you go to Europe, you're not playing well, boom, you're out and you're not getting paid. Like, you go to Europe, you're starting making at $75,000 maybe, and you've got to work your way up and show people you can help win championships. My concern is exactly what you're saying, Leonard. Like, we're losing track and devaluing education where the masses are going to need that big picture. And the amounts of money, unless it's real money, like $250,000 is, let's face it, it's about 170. Then you have to move to California or wherever. You're going to buy a car. You're going to have to feed yourself. It's a lot of money. I understand that. I would never tell anyone how to live their life. But everyone, you asked every guy on your team, if I asked every guy on my team when they came in, or anyone across America, how many guys think can play in the NBA? They all raise their hand. And the reality is 60 guys are getting drafted. 20 are going to be European guys. 20 are going to be underclassmen. 20 are going to, and half of those guys are going to have a cup of coffee in the NBA. Guys that the masses go from high school to college. They might have an MBA program that's going to help them academically, but they have nowhere to go back to. A guy spends a year or two in college, he's going to go back to Florida State. He's got a home. He's got a landing place. A guy goes to Kentucky, all right? He's got a home. He's got a landing place. Those are my concern. Look, if a guy can make it and he's a great player, that's great. Let me ask you guys, how much would playing in college basketball make for Zion Williamson?
I mean, I don't know. See, he may be on that hand I was talking about, that one or two guys a year.
But he was pretty good for that year in college basketball.
Exactly. No, he was again. He playing at Duke that year helped him more than you can ever put a price on, as far as getting ready for what he's going through now and is going to go through these next few years in the NBA.
Hey, Seth, here's what I know about the projected intent, the objective of this G League program. Their plan, and they realize what spending 1 year at Florida State or 1 year at Duke or 1 year at Kentucky might do for a player's marketing, quote unquote. Their idea is to tell the personal stories of these players while they're in the G League, not base it so much on the play per se, but take Zion Williamson. He had a lot of hype before he even stepped on campus at Duke because of all the videos we saw on social media, all the features in Slam magazine. I mean, he was almost legendary before he stepped on campus, and then it went to a little bit of a different level once he got on campus. But I think there's a lot of marketing notoriety that they plan on putting behind these players to do what a 1 year on college campus might do for them.
George, I agree with that, but you know what? Yeah. When you're playing at Florida State, you're playing every single night on national TV. Every single night. That G League select team is going to, I'm sure it's going to be great, and they're going to have good coaches coaching. I have no doubt about that. But I'll tell you what they won't be. They won't be on every big Monday, Super Tuesday, college game day, whatever we have on Thursday. They won't have the notoriety on a daily basis. Because I'll tell you one thing we do. We make some dudes some stars. Think about Trae Young, who he was when he came in, and within 6 weeks, that dude blew up. And I'm not saying, look, there's a lot of different ways to get there. Look, the road to success is always under construction. There's a lot of different ways to get to the end line. I just think if we continue to devalue education, we're going to have a generation of guys that thought they were better than they were, put all their eggs in one basket, and don't have a landing place. And to me, and again, I'm at it. Look, I don't have a horse in the races. I'm at it coaching now. Right. To me, that worries me. That's me.
Seth, let me ask you one thing. Now, Coach Ham said something earlier. There may be one or two guys that have no interest in being a student.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, but they're good enough athletically and as a basketball player to play in the G League. Now, it could serve as a landing spot for those kids. Sure. Kids, maybe one, are not capable of being a good college student, don't want to be a college student, and have no desire, that may go to China or Timbuktu to try to play that 1 year before they come to the league. But those are the things that I think have to be ironed out by the NCAA, the NBA, to make sure we don't get those kids lost in the shuffle or and that type of thing.
See, but I don't want to do, I like to think things through, and that's what I'm talking about right there.
Hey, what we got there?
I see your case. I see you. I got the mustache thing going on. I got hair on my head. I see your case. I see you.
Wait a second. Now, this is as good as it gets right here now.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
You got the three-piece on. You got the three-piece.
Coach got that three-piece. Yeah, he still got that three-piece going.
Hey. If you think about it, it probably still fits him, though.
I know. Coach Ham, I'm going to tell you this.
You look older in that picture, Ham, than you do now.
Coach, I'm going to get some of that medicine you're taking to keep you so young, boy. I tell you what. I got gray coming through, and it can't keep the gray out.
but Seth, what I'm saying is this. I think if we talk and we give opinions, but there's statistics, the statistics will bear out what's the right thing to do. If you go back and look at the top players in the NBA right now, all of them didn't go to ACC schools. What I'm saying to you, there are a lot of guys who went to Weber State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Washington, Davidson. Those guys are the best players in the league, and they went to college and they honed their skills and grew and developed. You have other guys who went another route. What I'm saying to you, that proves that those guys going to college, hone their skills, develop, and they are unique, and they are some of the best players in this league. Now, there's a different ways to town, you know what I mean? And there's no one particular way. I don't want to poo-poo the opportunity for youngsters to go on. All I hear is how we're trying to get to the league. And I'm saying it was a time when you actually would lose your job and not go to the NCAA if you didn't have the right APR academically with your team. There are schools that have been put on probation because they didn't take care of business academically. Now it's changed. You know, everybody's placing emphasis on how do we get to a spot? How do we chase the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? We can't see the rainbow and there's no pot. For most of them, you only have 20 to 25 jobs per year becoming available. And I'm saying to you, I don't know if it's worth, Mark, the investment of the money, the promotion that you say that I don't believe is going to be there, promoting guys and telling the story about somebody in La Cruces, in some little small town, wherever the D League's going to be, G League, so excuse me. I just think that there's a better way for us to work this out. And I think that we all are in a situation where selfishly, it's a possibility we might end up destroying, the golden goose, the laid egg. I'm just saying we got a really good thing going. And somehow
both leagues.
Both ways. And if we can put somebody on the moon, we can figure this out.
Yeah.
Hey, to wrap it up, Jonesy, let's just go around real quick. What's your hope for basketball in the next 8 months?
College, pro, both of them that we
general, just in general,
that
if you go through a tunnel 8 months from now, what do you want to see?
You know what? That just honestly, for me, it's a real simple one. Just that we get back to playing. That somehow, in the NBA, we can get back to having games with fans. I don't know whether that's attainable, but in a perfect scenario, in a month or two, that we get started back playing, finish the season, crown an NBA champion, and that we work something out that works for, as we're just talking about, the select few that want to go straight to an NBA academy and continue to have a great value on the what a degree means as a student athlete playing college basketball.
Good stuff. Coach Case?
Well, are you talking about what we want to do in the next few months, Seth, as far as getting back to basketball?
Like the state of our game in the next 8 to 10 months, what can we do moving forward, I guess? Again,
I think college basketball and the NBA was at the height, the top of the game at that when we all stopped. I think right now the most important thing is getting us back to where we can be safe. We can get back to basketball, get back to college, get back to the NBA game, but it's got to be safe. I think it's got to be a situation where, because I go back to the night, our last game against Philadelphia, and when Christian Wood came down, I mean, you would not have known this young man had caught the virus. So my thing right now is make sure we get safe, get a vaccine to get this thing under control, because it's no joke. Basketball right now should be secondary, but the safety of the fans, safety of the players, to get both the NCAA and the NBA back, because I love the game. I think we had a beautiful game going, on both ends. I was getting excited about the March Madness and getting excited about our situation as far as rebuilding, getting ready for the draft. But again, it's got to be done in a safe way where, we got to get rid of this monster that we're fighting right now, which is the COVID-19.
Coach Ham.
I have so much concern about where we are as a society from a financial standpoint, from a health standpoint. when you have so many people dying, fighting this mythical disease that we can't see, but just seem to be, we have to be at war with this invisible enemy. And I'm concerned about the safety of our players, like Kay's saying. I'm concerned about what are we going to do with recruiting in the summer. I mean, how are we going to make a decision in 2 weeks away from a whole lot of people catching the disease and dying, and we're going to be in a gym playing basketball, sitting in the stands? I'm concerned as to what is the right thing to do and how do we sort this out. I'm willing to make whatever sacrifices necessary. As much as I want to coach, as much as I want to see us get back, I'm more concerned of how we're going to do it and be safe, because I'm seeing people just dying all over the place, people that I've known, and it's just so disheartening. And I can't really wrap myself around basketball as a sport until I know whether or not my youngsters are going to be safe out there playing. I had an empty feeling in my stomach getting on that bus that Saturday morning we going to play Clemson, and I'm wondering if it's so bad that we're going to have a limited amount of people in the stands, then what are we doing? How can the disease not be in the stands and not be on the floor? I just, my mind and my heart was heavy, and I actually was relieved when we decided that we were going to cancel the tournament. And I felt the same way about the NCAA tournament. As bad as I wanted to participate in it and get to the Final Four and win it for our team, I was so overwhelmed and concerned about the safety of the fans and the players all involved that I'm just hoping that we can come to the point where we can feel comfortable that with the vaccine and a cure that will give me a comfort zone that the youngsters that I'm responsible for will be safe and enjoying the game that they love to play.
Yeah, I'd be remiss, Coach Ham. That was really well put. How eerie was it accepting the ACC championship trophy as the tournament? I mean, what was that? That had to be a surreal. I remember sitting there watching it, and like in the studio, it was surreal for us. I didn't know what to say. We're showing pictures, and they're asking us, tell us what you think, and I couldn't. It was weird.
As the commissioner was explaining the situation to us, and we won the league outright in the regular season. And as the conversation was going, I thought I heard him say we would represent the ACC, but it didn't really dawn on me that we actually were going to be crowned the tournament champion. And as that was happening in front of me, because when you listen, your mind's all over the place. I'm seeing us give us this trophy, and I'm trying to, in my mind, okay, I thought I heard him say that, but I thought I misunderstood. And it was a really interesting feeling. But when I look back at it, who else deserved it? How else somebody had to represent the conference, and we were not going to play, and we won the conference. And so in a lot of schools, don't award their champions with their conference, regular season conference. Some people don't have tournaments. So it was just an unreal feeling. Like you say, it was different and interesting. And it wasn't that I wasn't proud of it for my team. It just was something I had never seen before. And we accepted it, and we were proud of the fact that he felt that we were worthy of that honor, but it was different. And I would love to have played in the tournament the right way.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it was a weird thing. Yeah, I appreciate you guys doing this. My thing is real simple. Through all this, my biggest things when it comes to whether it's basketball or life is, I think the one thing we learn, tone is really important. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Mm. And that we all need to, and I'm not a political person, but we all need to just respect each other a little bit more. We are in uncharted waters, and the only way we're going to get out of this, and we hear it every single day, we're all in this thing together, and I get a little emotional about this, then we need to all be in it together. And that everyone needs to be pulling in the same direction. And the most important thing is to care for the next person, and let's figure it out together, and not to win an argument, but just to be in something And our shared vision should be looking through that tunnel and we're at the end of this thing, and not on one side of the tunnel or the other side of the tunnel. What you say, how you say it, and the tone in which you say it, to me now, is more important than anything in our society. And then the other thing would be just, let's find, hopefully we have a lot of brilliant people in this world, and I know they're all working together, and we've got to have trust in those people, and be thankful for the people, the doctors and the nurses and the hospital workers and the food chain and the police officers and the fire people and our first responders who are putting themselves at risk every single day. And if we let everyone do their jobs, kind of like we learned in The Last Dance, if everyone does their job and does what they do well, we'll find a way out of this. And I can't thank you guys enough. This was really therapeutic for me. I got to be honest.
Me too. Same here. All right. Good seeing you guys. See you, Ham. See you, Mark. All right. See y'all later. Okay.